Alright, from the top again?
Yeah.
Alright, fuck. So I thought I'd start the first one with like decision-making models that I use for like all the kind of high-level, business strategy and all of the decisions we make with marketing and sales and operations and product and all that stuff. Whenever we consider introducing like a new product or anything like that, these are basically the four kind of models I refer to. So the first one's asymmetric outputs. Now this one's really relevant to me because I'm really fucking lazy and you want to get the greatest benefits or the greatest outputs with the least amount of inputs. So an example of that could be, well now it's really ironic because we're posting on social media, but pretty much all of our revenue comes from one funnel and like sometimes just one ad at one point in time. And so whenever you want to get more leads in, all I do is just change the fucking budget in our ad campaign and we can grow like relevant to that. So that's an example of that first one. Another one is like the half-life of your decisions. So probably, well, essentially what this means is like how long until like, so the half-life is like, so for example, a half-life of caffeine is like 12 hours or no, 6 hours. So 6 hours after you have caffeine, about half of that caffeine is out of your system. And so looking at that with like decisions, it could be something like, okay, so remember that VSL that I filmed in like January? That's still getting us leads. So like the half-life of that 4-minute video is really, really fucking long. I'm considering doing another one, but it's not urgent at all. It's still working, and so you kind of just leave it there. So the half-life of your decision, and that can be for a bad decision as well. So the half-life of making a bad hire is really fucking bad. Because what happens if, and that's a good segue into like first, second, and third order consequences. So I've got a different diagram there, but what's the first order consequence of making a bad hire is, okay, that person doesn't perform really well in the workplace. The second order consequence is because they're not performing that well, if you don't fire them really quickly, you set a new standard. The third order consequence is you guys see that I've dropped the standard and then you guys might drop your standards as well. The fourth order consequence is if you don't like working with that person, you guys are probably going to leave and I'm going to lose really good talent. That one's also really ironic because I don't fucking do any of that shit on Fridays or Saturdays either. And the fourth one is like, can the outputs of that decision feed back into the inputs? So probably a relevant example of this is just like all the revenue. So obviously we're putting ad spend into a system which generates us leads. The outputs is revenue and sales. If we just feed that revenue back into ad spend, increase the budget. It can also be referred to as a flywheel. If you remember that book we read, Good to Great, but I can't remember the author. So the feedbacks and like the outputs can feed back into the inputs. There's another really good example, like I think the example I was going to use was Amazon. So as more sellers get onto the market, more products go onto the market, they compete on price, consumers get better prices, more consumers come onto the market, onto the platform, more sellers come onto the platform. It's really, really fucking, it just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning, and that's why the growth is exponential. So yeah, that's basically it, asymmetric outputs. So just getting the highest amount of outputs with the least amount of inputs, and not the other way around. So for example, like posting every day on social media. Like let's say you have 1,000 likes on your Facebook page, you post every day. It's like, oh, no one's becoming your clients because it gets shown to the same 150 people over and over and over again. You have to spend time making that content, posting that content, writing it and all that shit. Whereas you make like one ad, takes me 10 minutes, and then we use that for like 3 months. The half-life of decision, again, that example of just how long until the benefits or the disadvantages of your decision deteriorate away. First, second order consequences, so what's not the first thing that happens, but what's up to the fucking nth thing that happens in the feedback loop, and the outputs feed back into the inputs and keep spinning the flywheel. That's it. Does anyone have any questions? Comments? Inputs? Sweet. Cool. How long was that?